Hi all, this is Allmighty and welcome to this video. So once again I bring you a game between Veselin Topalov and Viswanathan Anand. Here Anand has the white pieces and Topalov has the black pieces. It is round 7, so half of the match is over. In 2010, after 6 rounds, 3.5, 2.5 for Anand at this point. And Anand, as it was stated by the rules, this time once again has the white pieces. So he did have them in the 6th round. Now he has them also in the 7th. So the last one who will finish with white pieces this match, if it comes to game 12, of course it will be Topalov the challenger. Not much to say up until round 6 at the first half of the match. It was mostly about Anand bringing the novelties, Anand bringing the new moves, up until round 6, where Topalov showed that he can truly go for that middle game and that he can quite, in my opinion, really be a worthy challenger to the World Championship throne. But Anand, always finds the correct moves, always finds the best moves in the positions, and quite honestly, it is very difficult to win a game against him, especially with the black pieces. So this time, Topalov once again will try with the black pieces. Not much has changed. D4 is still the first move. Knight to f6 and c4 now. But Topalov knew that after half a match and being, since Anand is in the lead, that he needs to do something different. So after e6, knight to f3, d5 and g3, we do have bishop to b4 on the board. So mostly up until now, he did capture on c4, but now he plays bishop to b4, and after bishop to d2, he doesn't take the bishop, but plays bishop to e7. Yeah, quite a familiar maneuver to most of the chess players, and now the game just continues. So the usual Catalan style, bishop to g2, you go castles, white goes castles, and now c6 having this very nice center with this pawns just protecting the d5 pawn. Bishop to f4, so now since you don't want to have a bishop on d2, on a b4 is a much better piece. Pawn captures on c4 and now knight to e5. And here you might think once again Topalov is going for that extra pawn where he will be in a passive position, Anand will be in the active position with the white pieces, and then he will try to do something. But actually not this time. This time Topalov goes for the variation with b5. And after knight captures, bishop captures, and bishop to d7, he gives up the exchange. Bishop to a8 and queen to a8. And at this point it wasn't really people weren't really sure was Topalov trying to go for something that active that he can actually go for a win, or did he actually wanted just a quick draw in this game so that he will try something with the black pieces. But actually Topalov surprised everybody, and just after a couple of moves showed that actually he is the one for the first time in this match in round 7 who is in the preparation. Here you have to see that for the moment, okay, if you judge by the material, of course white is better, but judging by the position, black does have some counterplay, and he can definitely play with a bishop pair against this diagonal, creating maybe even a pass pawn on the queen side, since he has 3 against 2 here, and just opening up the position and going for it, because now since the Catalan bishop has been exchanged for the rook, black can definitely look into something here and maybe try even to attack. But Anand, of course, knows this variation. He plays the best move, which is f3, preparing e4. We have knight to d5 attacking the bishop, bishop to d2, and now e5 by black. Topalov wants to open up the position, and we have e4. e4 attacking the knight, bishop to h3, and now pawn captures on d5. Bishop captures on f1, queen captures on f1, and pawn captures on d4. And it is also important to say that up until now, Topalov has used only a couple of minutes on the clock, while on the other hand, Anand has used more than 40 minutes on the clock. So this time Topalov is the one who is in preparation, and this is something that he needs, something to boost up his morale, and just quite honestly to go for it, because it is quite one of the last games where he can actually go for something with something active before he actually needs to go really sharp if he wants to equalize or go even win in this championship match. Now, judging by the position, once again, we have a situation where white is up in material. It is this time, the piece for a pawn. But it's a very nice pawn, and also a connected pass pawn, central pawn, d pawn, which will be pushed to d3, and where black will try to create some chances. Here, Anand once again plays the correct move, which was a4, to undermine the structure and actually to open up the position for his pieces. It doesn't really make sense to go and protect your pawn with a pawn, because pawn captures, you lose the queen, nor with anything else. If rook comes here to b8, then quite honestly, it also gets captured. Rook captures, knight to a4, knight to a3 as a move, or just simply capturing on c4. Queen to b7 as well. You capture, queen captures, and rook to a7. Now you're attacking the bishop. So whatever you do, the only move that you can do is actually queen to d5. But then we have pawn captures, queen captures on b5, and rook captures on a7. And white has gotten out of this development mess, at the same time keeping the material as it was before. Now, rook to e8 was played, and king to h1. And this was actually something that Topalov didn't foresee, or he just remembered up until this point in his preparation, because up until this move he played all the moves fast. So it was assumed that he was still in this preparation, and here he could have gone for this queen to b2, but this kind of forces a draw. After a couple of moves, for example, queen captures on c4, queen to c4, queen to b1, king to g2, black is left with the passed pawn, but with a very passive position, and this pawn will be most likely captured. If you want to even go even further, queen to e1 is the move for you. Double attack on this knight, on this bishop, sorry. h6, rook captures, queen captures, queen to b1, king to g2, queen to b2 back, and after queen to d8, king h7, queen to a5. This is theoretically once again a draw. So here after king to h1, he doesn't want to go into drawish lines, and it seems that with the black pieces, Topalov is going for a win. He plays bishop to f8, moving the bishop out of the way, so that after d3, rook to e2 can definitely be a plan. But now, after a couple of moves, rook to c7 and d3, and bishop to c, rook to c7 pressuring this pawn, d3 must be played, bishop to c3. White doesn't have any more problems in his situation, in his position. This pawn is defended, knight to d2 is coming, and it is all good for white here. Now, bishop to d6 attacking the rook, rook to a7 and h6. It doesn't seem likely that black will actually penetrate here, but actually after this move, knight to d2, Topalov was allowed to play bishop to b4 and once again equalize, and maybe going once again even for some winning chances. Rook has to go back to a1, captures on c3, pawn captures on c3, and rook to e2. So what did happen here? Topalov essentially, he just allowed the exchanges of the bishop, and the bishop would be a much nicer defending piece, of course, in comparison to the knight in this endgame, because now after these exchanges this knight isn't defended and you have to move it or defend it. If you would have a bishop, then bishop connected to this pawn on b2, definitely eyeing on this diagonal would be a much better piece. But now having the knight, he is not such a good defender, especially in a situation where a passed pawn is already on the third rank. So here, if you play something like knight to e4, then f5 can be played, just moving the knight away, knight to f2, and after queen to b2, second attacker to the knight, king g1, you can play queen captures on c3, and now black has two passed pawns, and all of this was forced, and black is quite simply winning this game. So here, instead of moving the knight, you have to defend it. So rook to d1 was played, and now queen to a4. Knight to e4, moving the knight, and now f5 could also be played, but it is met with knight to f2, and there is no, there is queen to b2, but after queen to c2, it isn't all that good. Here knight to f2 would be actually a mistake, so you have to play, so you have to play rook to d2 and exchange the rooks this way. So this was the main difference from the previous line. Pawn captures on e4, rook captures on e2, pawn captures, pawn captures, pawn captures, pawn captures, and you're just in a variation where there's a queen's endgame with the equal amount of pawns. So once again, after this knight to e4, black doesn't go for this f5, but plays queen to c2, rook to c1, and rook to h2. Now once again going for the first line, but black does earn an extra pawn. King g1, rook g2, queen captures on c1, queen to f1, and queen to e3. Yeah, of course, here if you want to play d2, then knight can simply capture, queen captures on c4, and once again you're in a drawish line. So after queen to f1 we saw queen to e3 and queen to f2. But judging by the next couple of moves, Topalov actually could have just gone for this d2 move, because after queen to c1, queen to f1, queen to e3, Anand was the one to play king to g2. And it kind of makes it awkward for black at this point, because even though he has 2 pawns up for a knight, he has 2 pawns for a knight and a very dangerous d pawn, this knight on e4 is quite well situated. And after f5, which was played now, knight to f2 was played, and now this knight is protecting the king and also at the same time is protecting the d1 promoting square. So it isn't all that good for Topalov now, and it was really mysterious to me why didn't he go for it if he decided to repeat the moves at that point. So a dramatic shift in the course of this game. Now Anand has the upper hand. Of course it is still a draw, and white has to prove can he actually win this game, but psychologically speaking, definitely blow for Topalov. And now since the situation has shifted, now he is the one who needs to actually earn that draw. King to h7, improving the position of the king. Queen to b1, moving the queen out, and queen to e6. Queen to b5, g5, and g4. Topalov decided to also expand here on the king side, and here maybe most of you would play f4. Also, definitely it was a move that crossed my mind as well. But here that would actually lose the game, because it runs into knight to e4, which once again this knight can be pushed away, and this knight defends it all. We can go through a couple of moves. If you play d2, of course knight won't capture immediately, because then queen to e2 and you lose the knight. But first queen to b7, king to g6, and queen to b1. The king is here, so it isn't all that good. You will bring the queen to d1 and you will pick up the pawn. If instead of d2 you play something like king to g7, then once again a check, king comes closer, and the problem is that black cannot come on this side of the board to maybe give some checks. So he has to play somewhere with the queens, for example queen to g8, queen to b6, a couple of checks, and already here you're in a problematic situation. Knight is coming on f5, this king is monitoring the pawn, and white is actually the one who is winning this game. So here after g4 we have pawn captures on g4. Pawn captures on g4, and now king to g6. And here is actually where it all happened. At this point, Anand just quite simply played queen to b7. A totally natural move, which doesn't allow the queen to actually give a check on this diagonal. And this is something that most of the people in the world would play. But actually it was after the game where the machine found the best continuation and a very confusing move, which forces a win for white. Queen to a4 here. And queen to a4, it is a very difficult move to analyze, because as you can see, it doesn't seem like white is threatening anything. It is just simply a waiting move. If you play something like d2, this runs into queen to c2 check, and all the things that comes with it. After the king moves, you simply capture a pawn, and then you can simply continue the game. After a couple of checks, you move the king, bring the knight into the game, and queen to d4, and you can see that, not even queen to d4, you can also play queen to d6, exchange the queens, pick up this pawn, and this is quite enough for white to win the game. So this is one course of action that could have happened if the pawns were pushed. If not, if you want to play something like queen to d5 check, which is, I would say, more natural move for black. Then king to f1 and queen goes back, doesn't allow the king to come closer here. Queen to a2 threatens knight to d3, capture and then capture of the queen. So queen to d5, protecting queen to a6, king to g7, queen to a7, king back, and now queen to e3. Now the queen is in a much better position, threats are queen to e4 check. So you have to move the queen once again, king to g2, queen to b3, yeah, threatening to capture this pawn, but now knight to e4. Queen gives a check, king to g3, you cannot push the pawn because the queen will capture, and if you play queen to e2, then simply a capture and you bring the king closer. Here in this position, yeah, well, white can remaneuver the queen and then once again go for the attack. And once again, Anand will be winning this game. But actually, to go through all of these variations and all of those possibilities, it is quite difficult. So yeah, it's only natural to not find moves such as that. And here we saw queen to b7. And after this, d2 was allowed to play because now the queen isn't on a4 and queen to c2 isn't a possibility. And just after a couple of moves, queen to b1, king to g7, king to f1, Topalov found actually a theoretical way how to actually keep a draw. Keeping the queen here on this file, and if the queen comes closer, you can actually go and defend this pawn. King to g2, queen to e6, queen to d1, attacking the pawn, queen to e3, defending it and also attacking this pawn. So queen to f3, yeah, blocking it, and we have queen back to e6. Queen to b7, giving a couple of checks. I will just quickly go through these moves in this endgame because, as you will see, neither of the players will make progress, nor the progress can be made. So there aren't actually any better moves. Queen to b1, king to g7 check, queen goes back to d1, but still queen to e3 defending the pawn. This was just, this is how it is usually in a World Championship match game. If it would be a tournament game, probably players would agree for a draw much sooner, but this time they're just playing it out. Maybe one of them makes a mistake. Queen to c2 and now queen to e2 even. Queen goes back, maybe gives some checks, but first king to g8, not allow. This check on e8. Queen to d7, king to f8, and now queen to d5. We have king back to g7, king to g3, and now he is given a check. The queen blocks, queen to e5 check, king to g2, queen goes to e6, sorry, and after queen to d1, the players agree to a draw, and after game 7, the result is 4-3 for Anand. Not much to say here. Next game will be in black pieces for Topalov here. And yeah, white pieces for Topalov here, and hopefully he can find a way to actually in the second part of the match how to counter Vishy with the white pieces. That being said, I would like to thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.